Good evening. You're watching Your World Tonight. I'm Sana Khan. Over the next 30 minutes, we get to the big news stories from India. Let's kickstart with the headlines. The Economic Survey suggests universal basic income to replace all subsidies, projects a 7.1% growth rate and a big reforms push. US President Donald Trump gives a jolt to the Indian IT professionals, and the sector brings a bill in the House of Representatives to curtail work visa programs, including the H-1B visa and the L-1 visa. IT company stocks fall up to 9%. India tells Pakistan to act against 2611 masterminds, says more action is needed than just putting Hafiz Saeed under house arrest for one more time. The Supreme Court of India refuses to stay the new Jallikattu law passed by the Tamil Nadu Assembly, but slams the state government for not following the law and order during the massive protests. And in sports, India and England go head-to-head in the T20 series decider in Bengaluru on Wednesday. The Indian Test team for the test against Bangladesh sees no major surprises. Well, the US House of Representatives is all set to pass the High-Skilled Integrity and Fairness Act, which will change visa rules governing foreign skilled employees in the United States and is likely to disproportionately impact India's IT service industry. In fact, we will be talking about what that really means for India, but first a look at this report. This is the secret to some of America's most successful businesses. Thousands of highly skilled foreign workers that help overcome its domestic human resource shortages. But this is set to change. A bill in the House of Representatives and backed by the Trump administration aims to make foreign hiring much harder for companies in the US. If implemented, the reforms could shift the way companies like Microsoft, Amazon and Apple recruit talent and force wholesale changes at Indian tech giants such as Infosys and Wipro. Companies will have to hire Americans first, and if they recruit foreign workers, they will have to ensure that not only are they paid a lot more than at present, they would also have to be highly educated, including having a master's degree at least. For now, Indian companies are circumspect. Despite stocks of several IT companies tanking at the news on Tuesday, R. Chandrasekhar at NASSCOM, the body which looks to protect interests of Indian IT companies, spoke to WION over the phone.
Bills are often introduced to state a political position by the proponent of the bill and may or may not actually see a final passage.
This also represents a challenge to the Indian government, which had praised the bonhomie between Prime Minister Modi and US President Trump when they spoke over the phone. A Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson confirmed that India had conveyed its concerns to the Trump administration. The new rules, when they will be effected, will impact workers from several countries. But as various studies have pointed out, it will impact Indian workers disproportionately. Bureau Report, WION. And while the fear of witnessing reforms to the H-1B visa could soon turn out to be a reality, with the bill being introduced in the US House of Representatives, Bengaluru's IT sector could specially take a hit as its offshoring model seems to be at risk. Despite the big IT companies like Infosys, Wipro, Mindtree and so on maintaining a strict silence on the matter and choosing to play the wait-and-watch game, we have a reaction from some of the techies. Let's listen in.
It's going to be impacting a lot, and dreams are going to be shattered for all the IT guys. It's not going to be simple, and it's going to impact a lot. And I would say that this is not advisable. It's not at all. It's not good.
It will have a huge impact on the Indian economy, the Indian IT industry. I think the US government and the Indian government should work closely together in order to overcome this situation.
And according to Naushad Forbes, the president of the Confederation of Indian Industry, or the CII, the immediate effect on the IT industry would be negative. However, one has to wait and watch for the potential benefits to the industry.
The immediate effect on Indian IT industry will of course be negative because there will be restrictions on the number of people who can go to work in the US under the H-1B visa program. In the medium term, I think the benefits can be potentially quite positive for the Indian IT industry. First, because the Indian IT industry might start looking at the Indian market as a potential market too, and that will be good for the IT industry and it will be good for Indian industry. Second, I think the Indian IT industry will start investing more in technology, and that also is highly necessary.
Well, considering that 90% of the Indian IT workers are in America using H-1B visas, how direct and how immediate will be the impact once this proposition or this reform becomes a law? Well, we would know that in due time, but right now let's see what are the social media reactions coming in, what people are talking about. And for that, let me go across live to my colleague Molly Gambhir. Over to you, Molly.
Well, Sana, just minutes after the introduction of the bill in the House of Representatives, we've seen how varied reactions, strong reactions have come in now. Most importantly, also, of course, from the stock markets. Now, we've seen how the BSE IT index, for example, slumped over 4 points. Now, let me just also get you a view of what the Twitterati is saying. Mixed reactions coming in from the people. Now, the intent of the bill, of course, being to help find talent, and that's the word coming in from the US House of Representatives, to help find talent and the most skilled talent, which will help to create jobs in America and not replace them. What does Twitter really have to say? Let's get in a view. Now, Nisha, one of the most interesting tweets coming across, the only good part about H-1B reform is the tag of being cheap labor will be removed. That's what Nisha is saying. Moving on now to more reactions. Can't wait for the executive order to stop the H-1B carnage. What does Siddharth say? Seems Trump's push for hiring American talent does not apply to manufacturing jobs alone. H-1B Indian IT bubble to burst. Good while it lasted for some. That's the reaction coming in from Siddharth. And now, varied reactions, Sana. Most, of course, critiquing this move. Gregory Moore is saying actually very interested in this decision. A lot of companies in this country employ H-1B visa holders. Can't wait for the executive order to stop the H-1B carnage. H-1B visas need to be heavily regulated. 40% H-1B contract workers should only be allowed per company. That's a view coming in. So you've seen how there are varied reactions, Sana. Some critiquing the move, some, of course, strongly voicing their support for the same. We've seen how the markets have already reacted. Now, the experts' point of view being that a word of caution should be put in that the introduction of the bill does not necessarily mean that it will see the light of the day, but certainly it's a wait and watch policy that the experts are adopting at the moment while reacting sharply to this move of the introduction of the bill.
All right, Molly, and also, if you could help us, understand a bit more, take us through some of the more Twitter reactions there. Is there a hashtag going around? And as you correctly pointed out, there's a lot of debate that started on this. All right, I'm going to come to you in just a bit, Mr. Rajiv Kumar from, in fact, former DG from FICCI is joining us over the phone line. Thank you, sir, so much for speaking to us here on WION. Do you think this move that's been initiated in the United States is going to have an immediate and a direct impact on the Indian IT industry? What are your thoughts?
Well, this has been long in the coming, and this should have therefore been expected by the IT industry, and I'm hoping that they would have to some extent prepared for it. So one, it should not be a shock or a surprise. Two, of course, it will have some impact because it will raise costs. But the fact remains that our, that these companies, our Indian companies, have taken steps to improve their technology, to improve their productivity, and I think therefore they might be able to absorb some of it. And also this will encourage our companies to move away from simple wage arbitrage to producing products and producing sophisticated system integrated proposals, and so I don't think it's really all so bad.
All right. Also, sir, this move of doubling the minimum salary of H-1B visa holders to $130,000 US. Why do you think such a move has come into effect? What could it do to the Indian IT industry? If you can help our viewers understand a bit about that.
Yeah. The doubling of the minimum wage has simply been done to, as I said, I use the word to, to minimize wage advantage that Indian and other emerging economy companies have when they get into the software, back office, or projects in the U.S. And the idea is simply that they should.
All right, that was Mr. Rajiv Kumar. We've lost the line with him, but he's saying it might not necessarily be all that bad, this move, but we have to remember this is only a reform, and it's going to take a while before this could really become a law. Well, we move on to the other big story. It's in fact rare for a terrorist accused served with a house arrest order to brief the media, but that's exactly what Hafiz Saeed, the chief of Jamaat-ud-Dawa, did. The Jamaat is ostensibly a charity organization, but it has been linked to terrorist outfit Lashkar-e-Toiba. Surrounded by supporters, he launched his now familiar diatribe against India and the United States, accusing them of influencing his arrest.
का इसरार है और ट्रंप की शय है, हुकूमत पाकिस्तान की मजबूरियां हैं और ये अगर समझते हैं कि हमारी पाबंदियों और पाबंदियों के साथ कश्मीर के मसले को पीछे फेंका जा सकता है तो ये मुमकिन नहीं है। इंशाअल्लाह कश्मीर की आज़ादी तक ये तहरीक जारी रहेगी।
Well, let's also quickly take a look into what are the charges against Hafiz Saeed. First up, he faces serious charges, in all accused of masterminding for his role in the Mumbai terror attacks of 2008. In fact, Hafiz Saeed has acknowledged responsibility for the attack in Aknoor sector in Jammu and Kashmir as well, and he's threatened war against India. Also, it must be noted that America has put a bounty of $10 million for Hafiz Saeed's arrest. All right, let me go across to our Pakistan Bureau Chief Taha Siddiqui, who joins me right now for the very latest. Taha, we hear that Pakistan now, the DG ISPR came out with a reaction for the first time after the arrest and said that this was a policy decision after, a lot of news went about in the media saying that this action of putting him under house arrest was a result of pressure exerted by the US on the behest of India.
Well, that's what we've been hearing also at the DG ISPR press conference. He basically said that when asked a question about Hafiz Saeed, he said that this was in line with the national interest of the country, and this is in line with the decisions that have been taken after consulting all state institutions. He did not really specify which state institutions were involved in this decision making, but obviously we know the military and the civilians are sort of the military. It's a military policy where it comes from, and we also know that the army chief today met with Nawaz Sharif. On one of the other questions was asked from him was the fact that whether or not there was foreign influence, and because of which the Pakistani government was sort of forced into taking this decision. And he said sort of the same rhetoric that we hear, that Pakistan is a sovereign country and Pakistan does not have that Pakistan does not take dictation from anyone. But from what we hear from sources inside the government, they do say that because of what was happening in the US and the ban that we saw in Pakistan being on the watch list, this is why all of this really did happen.
Also, Taha, the last question to you. In India, the talk is that this has happened before. What's new? Is it mere eyewash? Because India said in an official statement that they want credible crackdown on a man like Hafiz Saeed. But what's Pakistan's end game here? He's been put under house arrest earlier as well. What does this house arrest really mean, or what does Pakistani establishment expect to come out of it?
Well, that's actually the question that everybody is asking internationally, but not locally. Locally, we've seen that the Pakistani media has been just running the news as it's being fed by the government, by the Punjab government specifically, that this has happened, this notification has been issued. We saw that he came out and did a presser after he was supposed to be arrested, and despite that, nobody really criticized that in the local media here. So basically here, we've seen this, as you mentioned or used the word eyewash, we've seen this happening before after the Mumbai attacks, and then the courts sort of exonerating them because there was lack of evidence, or rather the fact that the state did not pursue the case as it should have. So in that sense, we're still waiting to see whether there will be any action or not. But from what we know in the past, we've seen how the government has been behaving when it comes to such strategic assets or such non-state actors. They usually sort of under international pressure show some crackdowns, do some cosmetic measures, and then things go back to the same way.
All right, Taha, thanks so much for joining us here and giving us perspective and details on that developing story. With that, we move on. The Finance Minister of India tabled the economic survey in Parliament earlier today. Chief Economist of India, Arvind Subramanian, presented the economic survey. Here are the key points that were highlighted in this year's survey. Vrinda Agarwal gets you the story.
The economic survey document begins with some interesting facts and figures about India. Welfare spending in India suffers from unequal allocation of resources, with the most poor states getting least amount of funds for their social programs. Thus, evidently, another fact correctly indicates that the income inequality in India is rising. On international trade, there are some interesting figures. As of 2011, India's trade to GDP ratio has overtaken China. Overall, last year, India weathered the external disruptions quite well. But with rising oil prices and sharp fluctuations at currency exchanges, the tide has not subsided. The chief economic advisor further mentioned in his speech that the CPI inflation has come down. Also, the current account deficit has come down from 2 to 3% to less than 0.5%. And the foreign exchange reserves have risen. Now moving on to some of the concerns expressed in the economic survey. The survey confirms the ballooning of bad debts with banks in the current financial year and suggests the creation of a bad debt bank to take away toxic debts from the bank and clearing their balance sheets.
The balance sheets of corporates and the balance sheets of banks are still challenged. We do see evidence of that. You can see the NPAs as a percentage of loans is high and rising, especially in the public sector banks.
The survey also brings back the age-old demand of a stable tax regime and widening of the tax base, including bringing real estate under GST. Demonetization dampened the GDP growth of the country, and to put it back on track, measures to remonetize the economy need to be taken.
We expect real GDP growth to slow down by about 1/4 to 1/2 percentage point relative to the baseline. There should be a fast remonetization, and the earlier that we withdraw the limits on cash, the better. I think the impetus to digitalization that the government has provided must be continued, but I think that one must be careful here. The transition must be gradual. It must be inclusive, because there are lots of people who are not digitally connected.
The survey mentions that India needs to meet its three main challenges to realize its still untapped potential. It is the inefficient distribution of resources, the existing confusion regarding the property rights, and the need to improve the still challenged state capacity. Vrinda Agarwal, WION, New Delhi.
All right, for more on this, let me go across to our senior correspondent, Raghavendra Rao. Raghavendra, if you can tell us, what does the economic survey really say about the after effects of demonetization?
Sana, the economic survey has clearly said that once the new currency in the required numbers is pumped back into the system, the growth rate would come back to normal in the upcoming fiscal, that is the 2017-18 fiscal. The growth rate, remember, this year is projected to fall to 6.5%, which is well below the earlier estimated projections. And now the economic survey has projected that after sufficient remonetization is done, this growth rate would be back on track.
Also, Rakhavendra, politically, what could these projections mean for the Modi government at this point? Because that's really crucial, and Narendra Modi and his government really know what's at stake as far as presenting this budget is concerned, because it comes post a controversial move like demonetization.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is one of the most significant indicators in the economic survey. I mean, if this document is suggesting that India's GDP growth rate is going to get back on track, it augurs well for the government, because the government has been facing a lot of criticism ever since the demonetization took place, not just from the opposition parties, but even from certain sections of the society, the common man. So the common man, in many instances, bore a lot of brunt of the demonetization drive. So if a document like the economic survey is suggesting that the growth rate of the country could again climb back to 7% and may even touch 7.5% in the upcoming fiscal, it's good news for the government, because it will enable them to blunt the opposition criticism.
All right, Raghavendra, thanks so much for joining us here and sharing details on this story. Now, of course, all eyes on the budget, which is tomorrow. Just a few hours left, and we at WION are going to get you all the detailed coverage right through the day, starting early tomorrow. Now, moving on, the Indian Supreme Court on Tuesday refused to stay an ordinance on the bull-taming sport of Jallikattu. The court allowed the centre to withdraw last year's notification, allowing Jallikattu acting on a petition moved by animal rights activists. The court gave the state government 6 weeks' time to explain the validity of the new state law. The top court has, however, slammed the Tamil Nadu government for not maintaining law and order during the protests that took place earlier in Chennai and other parts of the state. Let me go across to our correspondent there, tracking all the developments in just a bit. Nishchita Virendra, she's been tracking all the developments for us. This order coming about a few hours ago today also means that it's a victory for all these protesters who were saying that this sport is part of the cultural heritage of Tamil Nadu and hence it be allowed. Nishchita, give us a sense of how crucial is this, coming in from the Supreme Court of India after weeks and weeks of protests that we've seen, a lot of controversy over the sport itself.
It's crucial in the sense that the Supreme Court doesn't appear to have taken any direct offense to Tamil Nadu government really circumventing the order of the Supreme Court and refusing to lift the ban. Tamil Nadu government, as we know, came under intense pressure from the people of the state, who came out in thousands and lakhs and went ahead and passed an ordinance, immediately tabled the bill. So it was the Animal Welfare Board of India, which is the main petitioner in this case, that came up for hearing today. It submitted a plea asking the Supreme Court to stay the ordinance that was passed by the Tamil Nadu government. However, the Supreme Court has refused to stay the ordinance, but on the other hand, it did rap the Tamil Nadu government for not being able to deal with the situation in a better manner. It went on to state that while on one hand it is acceptable that people ask for what they want in a peaceful manner, but on the other hand it is not acceptable to break the law. Let's not forget that a protest that started off initially being extremely peaceful, but as the day progressed, as it reached the 6th and 7th day, we saw signs of violence on the streets. We saw a rail roco taking place. We saw several instances of lathi charge that the police resorted to. There have also been cases of police atrocities, alleged police atrocities that have been reported. So these are the issues that the Supreme Court pulled up. But it's significant in the sense that it is a victory for the Makkal movement again. The people of Tamil Nadu can go ahead, and tomorrow Jallikattu will be held in Alanganallur as it has been scheduled.
All right, Nishchita. Also, another perspective to look at it, the animal rights activists, who obviously for them it is a setback. But for the moment, thanks so much for joining us. Well, moving on to sports now, a closely fought T20 series is up for grabs on Wednesday when India take on England in Bengaluru. England won the series opener in Kanpur, remember, in a canter, but India bounced back to sneak home in a thriller in Nagpur on Sunday. All right, let me go across to my sports editor, WION sports editor, Digvijay Singh Deo. Digvijay, it's interesting to see how crucial this T20 international is for India. The series win because 3 times before this, it was England that clinched the title, and 1 time it ended in a stalemate. So this is going to be crucial for India from that perspective.
Yes, and also the bragging rights in that sense, because India have dominated this series. They won the Test series 4-0 and then won the ODI series. And then Virat Kohli, I'm sure, doesn't want to end up losing the T20 series at a place which he calls his second home. Remember, he's played all his cricket in the IPL in Bengaluru. He's been captain of the Royal Challengers Bengaluru since 2011. And India have come back into this series, and let's be fair, they haven't performed to the extent we expect them to perform. The batting, which got 300 runs in almost every ODI, hasn't managed to cross 150. So they are due in that sense. England will be ruining the fact that they could not finish off the game in Nagpur. They needed 8 runs of that final over, and they couldn't get the job done as Jasprit Bumrah bowled an fantastic final over, conceded just 2 runs. So both teams want to end on a winning note.
All right, Digvijay. I also believe this is a high-scoring pitch there in Bengaluru with a renovated stadium. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. That's all the time we have for On Your World tonight. This evening, we're taking a short break. More news and updates follow in just a bit. Stay with us.